Thank you to everyone for joining today. My name's Helen Latcham. I'm the coordinator for the MESH site. I'm based in London in the UK, and I work as a freelance engagement consultant. So I've been the coordinator for MESH since January, and I work sort of around 2 days a week on the project. So I'm here today to introduce you to the MESH Community Engagement Network. I just want to begin by talking to you about what this webinar will cover. So I'm going to start with talking about what MESH is and why it exists. And then I'm going to move on to talk about how it might be useful to you and to your colleagues. And then I'm going to give a quick tour of the site. So let's start with what is MESH. So MESH is a free open access website for people involved with community engagement with health research. So the idea is that it's a collaborative online meeting place for sharing resources, for networking, and for discussing good practice and engagement. It was launched in 2016 by the Wellcome Trust. Some of you may have heard my name before. I used to work at the Wellcome Trust, and I used to manage the international engagement program there. And so when I worked there in 2006, I worked with the Global Health Network to set up MESH. So MESH is hosted on the Global Health Network, which is a broader network of sites. The idea with the Global Health Network, and therefore with MESH, really was that it was set up to sort of allow people in research to have access, all have access to the same guidance, tools, resources, training, and importantly to each other. So the founder of the Global Health Network, a researcher at Oxford, called Trudy Lang, I think she was working on clinical trials in Kenya, and she realized that a lot of different teams who were working across clinical trials in that region, in that country, sort of were having similar problems with their research, and therefore needed similar solutions. And she really felt that the key was to sharing resources. So now the Global Health Network has a lot of different sites, a lot of them based on research area, so like Zika, for example, or HIV, but lots of them on research related concern. So it could be research ethics or pharmacovigilance, or in the case of MESH, community engagement. So how might MESH be useful to you? So MESH really is for anyone planning, running, evaluating, or doing anything to do with community or public engagement. So it probably seems like a good time for me to maybe say something about community engagement while we're talking about it. Lots of you may use different terms, or lots of different individuals and organizations use different terms to discuss it. So it could be public engagement, it could be community engagement, it could be public outreach, public and patient involvement, participation. There are lots of different terms, but actually on MESH, we don't exclude any of those things. We're sort of open to all the different definitions, really. And the idea is that it's useful to a variety of different professionals. So it could be researchers themselves, it could be field workers, it could be research nurses, community leaders, different people working in research admin, or even community members themselves, or artists, or people working more broadly in civil society. Back in 2016, when I worked at the Wellcome Trust, and I was working to kind of support people with their engagement practice, particularly in lower middle income countries, I found that people working in community engagement with research are quite often working sort of in isolation. You know, they could be the one person in their program or in their center who's been tasked with kind of community relations. And I sort of felt, that's a big task, and it's actually a really difficult area to sort of invent from scratch or work out what you need to do. And that, in any profession that we have, it's really important to learn from other people's experience. And actually, I felt that community engagement professionals and public engagement professionals needed to be part of a professional network themselves and have support from their peers. Hence why MESH was created, to bring people together and to share work. So that's my introduction over. I'm going to move on to give you a tour of the site. So welcome to MESH. I hope all of you can see the homepage here with all the pictures at the top. So as I said, important for MESH is that it's free to use, Anyone can access it. You can just go straight on and explore all the resources and look at everything that's on there. But what you can also do is become a member, and I would encourage you all to join the network and become a member of Mesh. You'll see, I think, at the top where it says "Welcome to me," there'll be a button that says "Register" for all of you if you go onto Mesh. If you become a member, you can post articles yourself, papers, reports, that kind of thing. You can start and join discussions, and you'll receive our monthly newsletter, which gives you a kind of rundown of the new things on the site. It gives you highlights of events, activities, training courses, and things in the field. So I will start probably with the most important area on Mesh, really, which is our kind of resource library, or our body of our kind of knowledge hub. So within this resource area, everything has been sort of curated, edited, and tagged really carefully to make it really easy to access, and for all different people and different types of professionals. The resources on Mesh have been categorized in a variety of different ways. So if I just hover over the resources tab, you can see here that it very much depends what kind of material you're looking for. So it might be that you're looking for articles from published literature, or you might be looking for kind of case studies, reports, reflections of, based on other people's engagement projects that they've run. Or you might be looking for really practical guides and tools on how to do a certain aspect of engagement or how to evaluate engagement. And as you can see here, you can go straight into those types of resources. The resources are also categorized according to geography, so by region and by country, and also by science and health topic area, or even by community engagement method or approach, so the kind of thing you might be looking to do. I will give you an example and show you what I mean. So, say, for example, you want to find a project report on some work that someone else has done in a certain area. You could go to Project Reports and Reflections, and you click on there. It gives you a brief introduction explaining what is available through this page. And you would say, okay, I've heard people talking about digital storytelling and how that can work really well engaging communities. So you would say, click on under methods of engagement, digital storytelling. And here you then get a list of the resources which are using that methodology here. And so if I scroll down, you can see there's one here which worked with young people living with HIV in Zimbabwe. So it's run by a researcher called Rashida Farrand. And here you can see a reflection on the project, which starts with kind of what the aims of it were. And then it has some nice videos embedded here where you can watch videos from the project, watch the whole film that was created, and also up at the top on the right here, you can see there's some embedded resources. So the facilitation guide they created to go with the project and the training manual that was created are also here for you to download and have a look at. So as you can see, we do try and put resources on Mesh that are multimedia. So there's different ways of kind of exploring material and to make it a bit more interesting. If I scroll to the bottom, here you can see underneath the categories that actually all resources, as I said, they're tagged and categorized. So you can find it, everything for lots of different directions. So for example, if you'd said, I want to look at, I want to look at all resources in Zimbabwe, then this project also would have come up. Or I want to, look at everything, all projects that influenced policy, then this would also come up. So you can see how the tags would take you there. Because actually there's a way at the top here, you can see it says all resources. So you can just go to all resources and then just search through that way. So moving on from the resources section, I just want to talk to you about some other work that Mesh does and look at some of the other tabs on the site. So we're going to move on to the themes tab. So themes are curated areas where we've pulled together resources on a particular area of practice in community engagement. So for example, some time ago, there was an evaluation month on Mesh, where we particularly wanted to look at the methods and techniques for measuring the impact of engagement. It's an area that people often ask about, and people are often looking for very practical guides and tools and examples in how to evaluate their work. So for each of the resources within the evaluation theme, there's a little mesh introduction to explain the methodology and to give you kind of an accessible start into that area. So I'll show you, if I click on evaluation here under themes, you can see as it loads that there's a navigation map for all the resources here. So this is really a way of again, you finding your way to the thing that you're looking for. So at the top, as you can see, you could click all evaluation resources to see everything listed, but actually it's often easier to kind of get to where you want to a little bit quicker than that. So for example, if you were looking for a particular method or approach, someone had mentioned to you theory of change as a way of measuring a program or a project that you might be doing. You could say, okay, under the methods and approaches, I can see there's 2 theory-driven evaluation approaches, and one of them is theory of change. It gives you a little introduction here so that you can see you're in the right place. You click on theory of change, and it gives you a list of the resources under that area. Really, the idea is that you end up with an accessible introduction to the topic, and you end up with videos and embedded papers and that kind of thing. If I show you the mesh introduction to a theory of change here, you can see it just gives you a nice little introduction here. There's a little video explaining theory of change by UNICEF, and there's some embedded papers that you can then download and read as well to give you an introduction. What's interesting at this stage, I think, is to show, if you look at the ribbon at the top, we've popped back into the resources tab, even though we went through the themes. And again, this explains and sort of reiterates the idea that all resources are in that resource library and they were all categorized. So actually, if you'd gone to resources and you'd gone to guides and tools and you'd gone to evaluation, you also would have found this same article. So hopefully you'll get to where you want, whichever way you come to it, I suppose, is the message. Right, so I've shown you resources and I've showed you ways that resources are categorized under some of the themes. If we move on to some of the other really useful areas of MESH, so a really key area is learning and training. So this learning and training tab is a collection of areas which signpost you to a variety of different opportunities and resources. In particular, we have e-learning here. E-learning or online learning is really popular on the Global Health Network more broadly. They have a professional development scheme, and they have a number of different online courses all around clinical research mainly. So if you're interested in courses around clinical research and research broadly, then do have a look at the Global Health Training Centre. But here on MESH, we don't have a MESH course yet, but it's something that's in development. In particular, 2 members of the network are currently working on a introduction to visual participatory methods in engagement, and that will be launched towards the end of the year. But in the meantime, this e-learning section here is a really clear list and signposts you to lots of different courses that are available online and from lots of different places. So they're really broad. You've got media skills, you've got science of journalism and communication, you've got all sorts of different things related to you've got social media analytics, etc. And it tells you how much the course would cost, how to access it, and it gives you a bit of introduction there. And again, similarly, if I move on to training opportunities for community engagement, here you can see more formal educational opportunities, including things like master's programs. And you can see they are organised by continent. So you can, again, scroll down, it tells you how long the course is, and it has a link through to the website where the course is available. So you can see what direct training and educational opportunities are available. Now, another really important area for Mesh's work is our work around events, both upcoming events that are happening, but also past events. So for us, workshops and events, conferences, it's not only about signposting to things so people know what's happening around the world, but it's also about helping people to prepare for upcoming events and capture learning and continue their networking after the event. So first, if we have a look at upcoming events, just because that's gives you a sense of, again, how we signpost to those kind of things. Again, they're by continent, and you can see a lot of them are workshops and conferences and that kind of thing, all related to engagement. But what also is really interesting and would be useful, I hope, to many of you in the future would be our previous events. So under this section, you can see they're organised by year. And these are past events that all have material on Mesh and which used Mesh as a kind of facilitator or a way of hosting, I suppose, for their meeting before and after their event. So if I give you an example again, in 2017, the Wellcome Trust held a large international engagement workshop about scientific complexity in public engagement. So you can see if I click on here, it takes you through to the site where all the meeting resources are hosted, and it gives you a really nice summary of the discussions at the meeting. It gives you some visuals and some videos of the presentations that were given. We're now on the screen, which is showing some resources from a past meeting. So you can see here that under the workshop that happened, there were all these different themes were discussed, and there are articles, resources and presentations all under these different areas. Again, they're all in the resource library, so you would also find them if you were looking that way. So I should say that if you are holding an event or workshop, then do consider using Mesh as a pre and post event hosting area. You can put your meeting up on there, you can put the agenda, you can put your pre-reading and links to that, and you can even open a discussion group to allow your delegates or attendees to come on and to discuss or network together prior to the meeting. As well as, if you write up any of the notes from your meeting and reporting, you can also put those onto Mesh, and it allows the people that attended to go on and to continue to speak to each other and to continue to access the resources. So this seems a good opportunity for me to show you the discussions tab. So if you can all see the discussions page now, there were both closed and open groups. So, for example, you could create a closed group for your meeting so that only the people you'd invited to your meeting could go in and discuss. And you could add your agenda and people could discuss. So I just click through. You can see, for example, a workshop was held in 2017 about evaluating community engagement, and it was a closed group, and people used this space prior to the workshop to go in, and actually they used it to determine what the agenda of the workshop should be. So they used Mesh to allow people to post articles and to open lines of discussion. And then they worked the agenda out from this closed discussion group. So I'm going to move on. Now, as I talked about in the introduction at the beginning, I think one of the most important aspects of Mesh is being part of this professional community, this part of professional community of people working on community engagement. So what we're really keen to do is to encourage collaboration and also to really show how many fantastic people and projects there are across the world. So we have a particular tab for this, which is matchmaking. Some of you may have spotted matchmaking when you were looking and wondered if it was some sort of science online dating. Well, it kind of is a bit like that. The idea is that you can put yourself on our matchmaking collaborators map. So I will click through and just let that load. And hopefully you can see the map there. So the idea is that this map has lots of, you can see MESH project reports. So again, if you want to find your project reports by clicking on the map and seeing what's happened in those countries, then you can do that. It also has people on here, so people who are part of the professional network who've added themselves. So if I give you an example, let's have a look. Southern Africa, Botswana. So there's you can see there's a person here, the science communication and engagement professional working in Gaborone in Botswana, and it gives you details about them, their expertise area, where they are, etc. So add yourself to the map. So as well as becoming a member of MESH, please add yourself to the map so we can see where you are. And then also, if you're looking for other people to work with and to collaborate with on your engagement work, then you can find them on the map and you can get in touch with them. So finally, I just want to show you one more area on the site. And that's the program hubs area. So this is a new area on the site, and the idea that these program hubs is that they bring together reflections from across collaborative research programs, consortia, or large networks. The idea is to gather learning, to encourage collaboration across those networks, and to showcase the diversity of great work that's happening. So H3 Africa will soon have a program hub on MESH. It's in development at the moment. And if you want more information about the content of that, then I think Paulina Tindana is the person to get in touch with. But as you can see, this page, there's the H3 Africa section where you'll be able to click through. There are already some resources on MESH relating to all of your different programs, and there are some project reflections and reports. Again, it's all under the resources section already, so if you go to resources and you search for genetics and genomics, then you will find everything there. So we've come to an end of the tour. I just want to conclude by asking you really to tell your teams, tell your colleagues, tell your friends about MESH. MESH is shaped and led by its users. So it's only what everyone makes it, and how everybody chooses to use it is what it becomes. So everything is in development all of the time. So please give your feedback, suggestions and additions. Tell us what's missing, tell us what you'd like to see, tell us what's incorrect. And it'd be really great when you're telling people about MESH or about community engagement. Under the About tab at the top here, if you click on About, you will see that the first thing here is a little introductory film. It's only 1 minute and 43 seconds long. So please do use that film. Show it at events, conferences or meetings if you want to give an introduction to MESH, or if you want to give an introduction to community engagement, actually, because it talks about what is community engagement, what do we mean by it. It's nice, it's got lots of different projects across the world showcased, and it's quite a useful way to start a conversation about community engagement. So join MESH today, become a member. You'll receive my fantastic newsletter. And if you want to get in touch, you can see there is a section here called Contact. You can see the MESH email address there. Thank you very much.